The silence was deafening. A nation held its breath. Voepass Linhas Aéreas Flight 2283, a symbol of routine travel, had become a symbol of tragedy. The crash sent shockwaves across Brazil and the world, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and unimaginable grief. How could a routine flight end in such devastation? What went wrong in the skies above Brazil? These questions haunted the families of the victims and investigators alike. The search for answers had just begun. The world watched and waited, hoping for a glimmer of hope amidst the wreckage. But one thing was clear: the crash of Flight 2283 would forever be etched in the memory of a nation. Voepass Linhas Aéreas Flight 2283 was a domestic flight in Brazil. It was a flight that many had taken before, a journey that connected two of Brazil's most important cities. The aircraft, an ATR 42500, was no stranger to the skies. Known for its reliability and efficiency, it had served countless passengers over the years. It was a reliable workhorse, designed for short-haul flights. The ATR 42500 was a common sight in the skies of Brazil, trusted by airlines and passengers alike. On that fateful day, it carried 48 souls, 44 passengers and 4 crew members. Each person had their own story, their own reason for being on that flight. The flight departed from São Paulo's Congonhas Airport at 10 o'clock in the morning, local time. The weather was clear, and everything seemed to be going according to plan. Its destination, Rio de Janeiro, a bustling hub of commerce and culture. The city was alive with energy, a place where dreams were made and lives were changed. The passengers were a mix of everyday Brazilians, families returning home, businessmen on trips, students heading back to university. Each one had their own hopes and dreams, their own plans for the future. The crew, seasoned professionals, prepared for another routine flight. They had done this many times before, and they knew the procedures by heart. Little did they know that this day would be anything but routine. As the plane climbed to its cruising altitude, everything seemed normal. But fate had other plans. The stage was set for a tragedy that would shake the nation to its core. The skies, once clear and calm, began to change. Dark clouds gathered, and turbulence rocked the plane. The passengers and crew could feel the tension in the air, a sense of unease that grew with each passing moment. As the situation unfolded, emergency responders were alerted, and news of the flight's distress spread quickly. Families waiting at the airport grew anxious, their hopes and prayers focused on the safe return of their loved ones. In the cockpit, the pilots communicated with air traffic control, trying to navigate through the worsening weather. The flight attendants did their best to keep the passengers calm, reassuring them that everything would be all right. But the storm was relentless. Lightning flashed and the plane struggled against the powerful winds. Passengers held onto their seats, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. The pilots made the difficult decision to attempt an emergency landing. Firefighters and emergency personnel rushed to the scene ready to assist. The passengers were evacuated, their ordeal finally coming to an end. The aftermath of the incident left a lasting impact. Investigators examined the wreckage, trying to piece together what had gone wrong. Memorials were held for the victims, and the nation mourned the loss of those who had perished. In the end, the tragedy of Voepass Linhas Aéreas Flight 2283 served as a somber reminder of the fragility of life. Families embraced at the airport, grateful for the safe return of their loved ones, while others lit candles in memory of those who were lost. The skies, once again calm, held the silent echoes of a day that would never be forgotten. The ATR 42500 lifted off smoothly into the clear blue sky. Below, the sprawling metropolis of São Paulo shrunk into the distance. Inside the cabin, passengers settled into their seats. Some read books, others chatted with their companions, and some simply gazed out the window at the passing clouds. The flight crew, led by Captain Eduardo Santos, a veteran pilot with thousands of flight hours, maintained contact with air traffic control. The initial leg of the journey was uneventful. The weather was clear, the winds calm. It seemed like any other day in the skies above Brazil. The hum of the engines provided a constant background noise as passengers relaxed into their routines. There was no indication of the danger that lurked ahead, no hint of the tragedy that was about to unfold. Section 4. Whispers of trouble, unusual readings, and rising concern. As Flight 2283 approached the town of Vinhedo, a subtle shift occurred. The once routine readings on the aircraft's instruments began to fluctuate. Alarms, designed to alert the crew to potential problems, started to sound in the cockpit. Captain Santos and his co-pilot, First Officer Mariana Silva, reacted immediately. They ran through their checklists, their voices calm and controlled as they worked to identify the issue. On the ground, air traffic controllers noticed the aircraft deviating from its assigned altitude. Concern began to creep into their voices as they tried to establish contact with Flight 2283. The responses from the cockpit, though professional, hinted at a growing sense of urgency. Something was wrong. Section 5. Desperation in the cockpit. The rapid descent over Vinhedo. The situation in the cockpit of Flight 2283 deteriorated rapidly. What began as a routine flight had now turned into a nightmare scenario. The pilots, seasoned veterans of the skies, found themselves grappling with an unprecedented emergency. The once minor fluctuations on the instruments escalated into a full-blown crisis. Warning lights flashed incessantly, and alarms blared, creating a cacophony of chaos. The pilots' training kicked in, but the severity of the situation tested their limits. The ATR 42500, now battling unknown forces, began to lose altitude quickly. The aircraft, designed for stability and reliability, was now at the mercy of the elements. Turbulence shook the plane violently, adding to the already dire circumstances. Captain Santos and First Officer Silva fought desperately to regain control of their aircraft. Their hands moved swiftly over the controls, trying every maneuver in the book to stabilize the descent. Sweat dripped from their brows as they communicated in terse, urgent tones. Their voices, captured on the cockpit voice recorder, betrayed a mix of fear and determination. Every word, every command, was a testament to their resolve to save the lives of everyone on board. The tension in the cockpit was palpable, a stark contrast to the calm professionalism they usually exuded. They issued a mayday call, their words echoing through the stunned silence of the air traffic control tower. The controllers, trained for such emergencies, sprang into action, providing guidance and support. Yet, the gravity of the situation was not lost on anyone. Below, the residents of Vinhedo looked up in horror as the stricken aircraft plummeted towards the earth. Families, children, and workers paused in their daily routines, their eyes fixed on the sky. The sight of the descending plane filled them with dread and helplessness. The roar of the engines, now strained and desperate, filled the air. The once powerful turbines struggled against the forces pulling the plane down. The sound was a haunting reminder of the battle being fought in the skies above. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as the inevitable approached. Every second felt like an eternity, every heartbeat a countdown to an uncertain fate. The pilots, the passengers, the people on the ground, all were united in a moment of shared anxiety and hope. The rapid descent over Vinhedo was not just a test of skill and endurance, but a testament to the human spirit's resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Section 6. Impact, the crash of Flight 2283. At 10:48 a.m., just 48 minutes after takeoff, Voepass Linhas Aéreas Flight 2283 slammed into a densely wooded area just outside Vinhedo. The flight, which had departed from Rio de Janeiro, was en route to São Paulo when it met its tragic end. The weather was clear, and the skies were calm, making the sudden crash all the more shocking. The impact sent a shockwave through the surrounding area, shaking homes and shattering windows. Residents in the nearby neighborhoods described the sound as a thunderous explosion, followed by an eerie silence. The force of the crash was so intense that it was felt miles away, causing panic and confusion among the local population. The once proud ATR 42500, now a mangled wreck of twisted metal and broken dreams, lay smoldering amongst the trees. The aircraft, known for its reliability and efficiency, was reduced to a heap of debris, unrecognizable from its former state. Investigators would later describe the scene as one of the most devastating they had ever encountered. A plume of thick black smoke rose from the crash site, visible for miles around. The impact was catastrophic. There were no survivors. Emergency responders rushed to the scene, but their efforts were in vain. The fire that ensued from the crash consumed much of the wreckage, making rescue operations nearly impossible. The lives of 48 people, passengers and crew, were extinguished in an instant. Families waiting at the São Paulo airport were met with the heartbreaking news that their loved ones would never arrive. The grief was palpable, as families and friends struggled to come to terms with the sudden loss. The crash of Flight 2283 left a scar on the landscape and a gaping hole in the hearts of all who bore witness to the tragedy. Memorials were erected at the crash site, and vigils were held in honor of the victims. The community came together in mourning, offering support to those affected by the disaster. The memory of that fateful day remains etched in the minds of all who experienced its aftermath, a somber reminder of the fragility of life and the unpredictability of fate.